Here's 5 things I wish I knew before I started building autonomous buildings with nature-based solutions. And this will save you a lot of time. The first thing is you have to unlearn a lot. This took me a long time to realize. But if you are a trained architect or engineer, so many things of what you learned in school or university, you just need to unlearn it. And this takes time, and it took me time. And I'm going to show you what I mean. See, conventional buildings, which is what architects and engineers learn in school, are working in a way to basically disconnect themselves or work against the natural world. So if we take a conventional building that often looks like this, like a box, it's basically many times you even will hear these words in school, is that you need to basically protect the building from the environment. But this is a wrong way of thinking. This is the fundamental problems why architects and engineers keep building buildings that are working against nature. So if you're a trained architect, probably most likely what they teach you in school is that you need to get the water away from the building. Water is a problem, rain is a problem, and it needs to go away. Well, there's a truth in that, but there's also a reality to that what we do in conventional architecture is that we design the buildings to flush away water. So, when it rains, instead of harvesting the water and using it, which is, a resource that buildings are paying for, we just flush it away. So conventionally, this water has a gutter, and then that goes to underground, and it goes to an underground sewage system, and then from there it just goes out. It goes out, actually it often goes to the sewage system. Now, you need to unlearn this. This is stupid. This doesn't make sense at all, because first of all, water is becoming one of the biggest issues in the world today, and all our buildings and cities are designed to flush it away. We cannot do that. Instead, we need to harvest the water. We need to understand, okay, how can we build and design the building so we can have a water deposit, for example, in the backyard or in the basement or wherever, and instead of flushing it away like we're doing now, we should stop doing that. We have to unlearn this. Instead, we need to harvest that. So we harvest this water. So the people using this building have access to water, right? That way they don't have to pay for water, and they don't have to rely on infrastructure that is not reliable. So this is one thing we need to unlearn. The second thing is that we also, when we design a building, we just place our windows kind of randomly based on the view, based on, what we think would look beautiful, but we don't take into account the sun. So the sun, is the heating system of the natural world. So we need to design the building, the shape of the building, in a way that it harnesses the sun when it needs it, and it blocks the sun when it doesn't need it. Today, unfortunately, in school, they teach architects to design beautiful buildings, which there's nothing wrong with that, but they don't teach them how to design it in a way that it's functional. So, basically the main things to understand is that the sun has a high angle, and it has a low angle. So, however you're designing your building, you always need to have this in account. You need to design your building in a way that when it's winter, that's when you have a low angle. You design your building in a way, you make sure that you place the windows of your building in a way that it brings the low angle sun inside the building. This is fundamental. And then you need to design the roof. You need to make sure that your roof here has an overhang, has enough overhang to block the summer sun, which is when the sun is at its higher point. So by basically just understanding this, by unlearning this idea of buildings should just be beautiful and you just design them because you want to win an architectural award, because you chose shapes, you know, that you think is very beautiful. But if you don't understand how the sun works as an architect, that's pretty bad. And that's unfortunate, because I know in school they really don't teach you about this. They teach you about famous architects and historical architects and whatnot, but there's very little attention on understanding how this works. So unlearning is very important. And another important factor is that what they also teach you in school is that the wastewater, the sewage that comes out of your building, you just, you know, you don't have to think about the layout. You build the building wherever you want, and then don't worry, because you can just take the sewage out through the sewage system, you know, which, my friends, 80% of the sewage that is produced in the world today goes untreated. So you need to unlearn this idea that the building, you just connect it to the municipal sewage system. But you need to remember that 80% of the sewage of that building goes untreated and has an environmental impact. So if you're not addressing this, you cannot say really that your building is sustainable. So you need to unlearn this idea, because instead, waste is a resource. That's how it works in the natural world. In the natural world, every species waste is another species resource, right? So we need to think the same way. We as humans, we have waste, and our waste can be transformed into ecosystem. So instead of just throwing out to the environment, you know, we should stop doing that. This is not good at all. So instead, we should take it out and we should treat it naturally with natural systems, and we should reuse it to create green areas. So as an architect, you need to understand that the landscaping of your project needs to be part of the sewage system. So you cannot ignore this, you know. And well, maybe you're thinking, well, Moin, what if I don't have space? I have a very small plot. You know, what do? Well, you have a roof. You make the roof green, right? You can make a green roof, and you can reuse the wastewater. You can treat the wastewater naturally, and then you can reuse it to make a green roof. So these are the main fundamental things that, you know, as a designer, you need to unlearn. And it took me actually a lot of time to unlearn all of this, because every time I was designing, I kept falling back into the idea of the conventional thinking. But when I really realized that, you know, I'm kind of brainwashed out of university, so I took my time to really just unlearn as much as I could. And once I unlearned, I was more open to new solutions. Because also the problem is, when you come out as an architect or engineer out of school, you think you know everything. You think what they told you in school is correct. So anyone coming with alternative solution, you just kill the idea right away. So this also took me time. When I started to unlearn all of these things, I was way more open to solutions. And I started implementing them, and I started trying them, and I started to see, wow, they actually work. they cost less and they have less maintenance and they're more reliable. So you need to make sure, my friends, that you take the time to unlearn what you've learned in school. Now, the second thing that I learned is that passion is not enough. See, I thought I had a big passion, and with that, I would be able to bring this out to the world. You know, it's a very cute idea to think like that, but then comes reality. You know, this is quite new for the modern people. You know, ancient people used to live with the natural world. It was part of their civilization. But today, we are so disconnected. So most people don't even understand the benefits of nature. So as I got started, I realized that it is much more difficult to sell this idea. So you need patience. You definitely need patience. This takes time. This is not for you know, if you just want to make quick money and you want to set up a business and you just want to grow fast, this is not for you. You know, if you genuinely believe this is the future, you know, you want to do this, I want to be completely honest to you, it takes time. It takes time for you to learn how to sell this. And this is the next point, that selling the idea is much harder than actually building it. You know, I spent over a decade building these solutions around the world. And I quickly realized that it's actually quite straightforward. Most people think it's very complex, but actually once you build a treatment system, wastewater treatment system that can clean wastewater, and once you see the result, you'll be surprised how simple it is, how actually easy the natural world works. So I spent over a decade just building these solutions, and then once I mastered it, I thought, okay, great. Now I know it, now I'm just going to go and bring it out to the world. But I realized that selling the idea is hard, because once again, all the architects and engineers is doing the conventional way, and all the clients only understand the conventional way. So I came, you know, to the market and being very disruptive and trying to sell this whole entire holistic concept of heating the buildings naturally, cooling it naturally, harvesting water, treating wastewater, producing food. And I quickly realized, wow, it's really difficult to sell this, you know. For most people, for most clients, it's just too much. First of all, it's too much to understand. And so I actually had a conversation with a random person about this, and I never forget this person. That person told me, hey Moin, you're actually being too disruptive. You need to bring an improvement to the market, not a revolution. The market doesn't allow something to come in and disrupt everything just like that. So with that advice, I started to learn how to sell a part of the system. You know, I went to droughted areas where people had problem with water, and I was only focusing on the water. I was telling them, hey, look, you have a water problem, so why don't you come and harvest water? And then once I convinced them on that, then I said, hey, by the way, you have sewage coming out of your building. Why don't you recycle the wastewater and save yourself money? And then I started doing that. And slowly, I started to add more solutions to it. Because after all, nature-based architecture is a very holistic concept where we are integrating various solutions into the building. So if you are going about this to sell it, you know, if you feel it's too much, people don't understand you and get it, I feel you. I've been there. So what I recommend for you is start approaching it one by one. Look at your community and what is the main challenges in your community and address that. You know, maybe you are not in an area that is having problems with water, but energy consumption is a big problem. Then, you can talk about the nature-based heating and cooling system, for example. So, and then we have the fourth aspect of it is that you really need to take your time to understand your ecosystem. This, you cannot cut corners here, okay? You really need to understand your ecosystem. In the community you live, you need to understand the cycles of the water, you need to understand the wind, you need to understand the sun, you need to understand how the climate is changing in your environment. We are living right now in a time where climate is starting, a lot of people are starting to see more rain, some are starting to see less rain, some are starting to see more hotter periods, some are seeing more colder periods. So you need to understand your ecosystem. And why I'm telling you this is because you cannot just learn about one ecosystem and then go and copy paste that design to another location. It doesn't work like that. See, this is the challenge with nature-based architecture compared to conventional architecture, is that every building needs to be adapted to its environment. So it's very important that you take the time and you understand how the ecosystem works. If you want to be a nature-based builder or designer, you need to take this time. You cannot just draw buildings, without understanding how the ecosystem works. So take your time and really understand everything in your ecosystem, and you will see, once you understand the ecosystem, you'll get way better at designing the buildings, which means your buildings are going to perform way better, which means that your clients are going to be way happier, which means you're going to get more business. And after all of us who are working in this field, we want to do more projects. So we need happy clients. And my friends, the last point is that this will change how you will see everything. Once you start mastering, once you start unlearning everything you learned in school, and once you start learning how to sell this, how to communicate this, once you start really understanding your ecosystem, what will happen to you is that you will stop thinking building as a machine, and you will start seeing a building as a living organism. And this is really life-changing, because once you start approaching it, once you come to that level that you genuinely see a building as a living organism. And when I say living organism, it's like the human body, right? We're designed in a way that we can breathe. We're designed in a way that we can cool naturally by sweating. We're designed in a way that our body can retain temperatures naturally, So we're designed in a way where we have a treatment system inside of us that treats what we're eating and filtering it. So whoever designed us with the thinking to create a living organism, a living system. So once you start thinking like that, you become a powerful creator. You're no longer just building buildings that are dead structures. You're actually building something that will help an entire family, that will take care of the clients you're building these buildings for, because these buildings will actually take care of the people. They will always make sure whatever happens in the world, there's always comfortable temperatures inside. There's always clean water for drinking and for sanitation. The people living in these buildings, they can always use their toilets, and also in their buildings they will always have access to fruits and vegetables, organic ones, healthy ones. So what you're doing is not just building a shelter for someone. These people who are building these autonomous buildings, they are investing in their future. They are basically building something that will help them to become independent and free. So you have a big responsibility as an architect or engineer who's doing this. And if you really want good result, you also need to work on yourself. It's actually one of the most fundamental things if you want to become a nature-based designer or a nature-based builder. You actually need to understand how you work, how this body itself works, and you need to take care of it. You know, you cannot go out to the world and promote about living in a healthy way, but then you're not doing it yourself. It's going to be very clear that you're not telling the truth. So, and it's going to affect your work. You know, if you really take care of yourself, you know, mentally, spiritually, physically, you're really going to understand nature better. You're going to understand your own nature better. It's going to allow you to help to design spaces that are healthy for people. So, you know, all of these combined will help you to save time. You know, I'm sharing all of this with all of you because I don't want you to have to take as much as time I took to learn all of this. And this is also the reason why I created the Biotonomy Online Academy, is because I want to help people who are interested in this to achieve success faster, because I want more people to do this. You know, the more people who do this, the bigger the transition, the faster the transition will happen. So in our Biotonomy Online Academy, we are offering you 8 different modules where you will learn how to design and build nature-based buildings. But also, it's very important to understand, it's not only about the modules, we're also helping you in all other aspects of it. You know, how to sell these buildings, how to communicate it, how to find clients. You know, we have monthly Q&A session where we meet with our students and we are mentoring them on their own projects, on their own startups, and we're sharing ideas together as well. So, you know, if you think this is important as I do, then join the community, because if you want to really master something, you should join a community and you should learn from the people who already are doing this. Join the Biotonomy Online Academy. I'm looking forward to see you there.